to Topics for Another Day. And this is Tim, and I got with me
Dojo. Oh no! Shabazz.
All right, there we go. And so we're going to talk today about Daniel. And if you go back to, we can call it season 1, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, season 1, we have an episode on Daniel where we talked about Daniel, but we didn't get all the way through. I think we meant to go through a lot of the book of Daniel, but the book of Daniel is very heavily loaded with information, very heavily loaded.
Mm-hmm.
Jesus even refers to it in the Gospels. He says, you have to read in the book of Daniel. So it's a very, very informative book. And even if you're just looking for a story, it's a good story. But there's a lot of prophecy in it too. And there's a lot of history in it. There's a lot of historical names in it. So it's a book that has so much information in it. And we're going to talk about that today. So specifically, I want to get into Daniel chapter 2, Daniel chapter 7, and Daniel chapter 8 if we have time. And Daniel chapter 2, 7, and 8 speak of these visions that Nebuchadnezzar has, and we'll find who Nebuchadnezzar is, and Daniel has about the kingdoms of man from the time where the book was written, at the time of Daniel, the time of Babylon, all the way through our present day today. So this book is actually speaking about our time today. It's even talking about as far back as 6th century BC. So amazing book.
Tell that bird to shut up.
You can hear my bird? Oh,
I can hear that bird. That bird is loud, man. Tell him to shut up.
There's parrots all over the place, man. It's like those green.
Is that what's screaming, or is that your bird?
I think my bird too. My bird and parrots all out there.
Okay.
People get to enjoy my bird.
All right,
but anyway,
you must have joined him. Yeah.
So Daniel, let's start with Daniel chapter 2. In background to Daniel chapter 2, Daniel chapter 1 begins with Daniel, right?
Mm-hmm.
Babylon is the controlling authority on earth, or one of the governments that are the controlling authority on earth at that time. King Nebuchadnezzar is ruling Babylon. He goes over to Judah, takes it hostage, takes it captive, and takes the captives back to Babylon, all the way from Jerusalem today, all the way across back to Babylon. So it's a pretty far distance if you look at it on a map. The interesting part is he only took captive the people that had something to contribute to society. So all the people that were poor, all the people that were pretty much illiterate, all the people that had nothing to contribute to society, Babylon left them behind. And that's who got left behind in Jerusalem. And then, of course, Babylon would set somebody over that area to rule it over it for Babylon, as essentially he took all the smart and intellectual people away to contribute to Babylon proper. So
yes,
that's who Daniel is, right? Daniel and the 3 Hebrew boys of Azariah, Mishael, and Hananiah, but we know them as Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. That's their Babylonian names. So those 3 boys and Daniel are taken captive, along with a bunch of others, over to Babylon. And then, chapter 1 just says a little bit more details about that. But I want to get to chapter 2, not spend too much time on that. Chapter 2, because in chapter 2, Nebuchadnezzar, who is king of Babylon, has a dream. And in this dream, it freaks him out. He doesn't know what this dream is about. So he brings in all of his wise men. It says the soothsayers, the magicians, the astrologers, all those people. He brings all the Chaldeans. You're right, the Chaldeans. He brings them in. And, this is his court of wise men who he would consult for difficult things, right? And probably consult from you say what?
I would say he brought Dr. Phil in. He had Oprah.
Yeah.
Who else? He had, what are they called now on TV today? They're panelists of experts.
Exactly. They're panel of experts, yeah.
They always bring in the experts. So these are the experts, yeah.
Except we couldn't use The View because
they're not experts. They're stupid.
They are extremely
stupid. They're banshees.
Did you hear the recent one where
no.
I forgot I don't even know their names on there. One of the girls one of the ladies on
You
there.
said one of the girls, like that's the whole cast is girls.
Yeah, one of them. One of them. Yeah, you're right.
Mhm.
One of them said that the recent solar eclipse we had was caused by climate change. Did you know
I
that?
mean, she's not wrong, man. It's just
Because it's like
uh,
climate change, right? So
I don't. Yeah, that's why I don't listen to them. They don't know what they're talking about
no, they
ever. They
don't. They
never
don't.
know what they're talking about.
So the moon,
Mm-mm.
which orbits the Earth outside of our atmosphere, right, has its own
Yes,
elliptical orbit, and
yes.
somehow, because climate change, shifted the moon way out of orbit and threw it in front of the sun,
Is
right?
that what she said?
No, I mean that's what she's implying. They just
Oh,
said the eclipse happened because of climate change. What kind of a nonsensical, uneducated type of, I mean, moronic type of response that is? Anyway, so yeah, there's the panel of experts of today, right?
and
That
it
people
is.
consider
So,
experts.
so he called the View. So
We call it the
Nebuchadnezzar
view.
called the View.
So
And
Nebuchadnezzar brought,
what happens? What
yeah,
did
he
Joy Behar tell Nebuchadnezzar
there you
and
go.
Whoopi Goldberg
There you go. He
tell
brought Whoopi
Nebuchadnezzar?
and Joy Behar in, and they said, they told King Nebuchadnezzar, well, King Nebuchadnezzar said, hey, I need you guys to interpret my dream because it freaked me out and I need to know what it
Hmm.
means. And so they said, great, tell us what the dream is. And so King Nebuchadnezzar says, no, you tell me what my dream was. And if you can tell me what my dream was, then I know you can interpret it. And so
Hmm.
they all say, Whoopi and Joy, they're like, well, that's impossible. How am I going to know? Right?
Yeah,
How am I going to know what your
yeah,
dream
no one
was
can
unless
do
you tell
that.
me?
Yeah, what you're asking is impossible. Yeah.
And they say that. They say that in chapter 2. Hey, that's impossible. That's an impossible thing to ask. Said only
Hmm.
the gods can do that. Only the gods can tell you, what your dream is. Which is funny that they say that. They say only the gods can say that. Because fast
Hmm.
forward in the chapter, Nebuchadnezzar gets pissed off at these guys and say,
Hmm.
you bunch of useless nothings. I'm gonna kill you all if you can't tell me. And so they can't. So then he does.
Yeah. So I'm gonna kill you. I'm gonna kill your peoples too, your family too, right? Didn't he say that?
Yeah, well, he said he's gonna go out there. I think it just said what he went out and wanted to go kill all the wise men of Babylon. Yeah,
Okay.
for this reason, the king was angry and very furious and gave the command to destroy all the wise men of Babylon. Yeah.
Before that though, he said that. Now I got to make sure I'm right.
Oh, he said he'll bring your houses to a heap of ash. Yeah.
That's what it was.
Yep.
So I mean, I would think that's what that would mean, right? They bring your house to a heap of ash. Or you
Spartacus
could just
talk.
burn down their house. Anyways, it doesn't matter. That's beside the point.
Do it in Spartacus
It's-
talk. Uh,
I wish I could. I don't remember.
Make known visions of dream, or else house to ash shall be. Anyway,
I burn the
so
house, leave it in ash. Some yeah, yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Jupiter's. Anyways, that was
Anyway,
beside the
so uh, so the king actually does get pissed off, right? He says, "All right, fine."
point.
He sends his captain of the guard, go kill them all. So they start
Hmm.
going to kill all the wise men, and then they get to Daniel. They come to Daniel's house, and Daniel says, "Whoa, whoa, whoa! What are you doing?" And so the captain of the guard says, "Well, the king was pissed off. Nobody could interpret his dream, so he wants to kill all the wise men." And so Daniel says, "Hey, chill out. Give me some time, and I'll ask my God to tell me what his dream was, and I'll interpret it for the king." So the captain Carr says, "Okay." So then Daniel does. He prays, and God reveals the dream to
Hmm.
Daniel. So Daniel goes before King Nebuchadnezzar and tells him what the dream is. So I think that picks up in, well, it's interesting what Daniel tells God, what Daniel tells Nebuchadnezzar, because he tells him, I think, let's see, Daniel went to his house. Yeah. Then the secret was revealed to Daniel in night vision. So Daniel blessed the God of heaven and said, so it's interesting what Daniel says, because I think this has been quoted many times, but it's the position of the magician and sorcerer saying, we don't know this stuff. Only the gods do. You got to go ask them.
Hmm.
But God has this relationship, or sorry, Daniel has this relationship with God. And when God reveals the dream to him, he says, hey, wisdom and might, they're yours, God.
Hmm.
Only you change the times and the seasons. You remove kings and you raise up kings. You give wisdom to the wise and knowledge to those who have understanding. So you reveal deep and secret things, and you know what is in the darkness, and light only dwells with you, right? And so he just says, I thank you. So again, the position, I mean, this is a theme all throughout the Bible. The world has this position of, I'm on my own, I can figure it out on my own, right? Like the
Mm-hmm.
wise men, we can figure it out, but right now we don't know. Only the gods do. Well, it's like, why don't you go ask
Mm-hmm.
those gods, right? Why don't you ask those
Mm-hmm.
gods? Number one, they're dead, they're not real, and number two, they probably don't even know. But
Mm-hmm.
Daniel, who is in the position of someone who has a relationship with God and says, I don't know anything, but he knows everything, right? It's all credit goes to him. And again, like we talked about before, this is just another image of the garden. Daniel goes to the tree of life. All these wise men go to the tree of knowledge, good and evil. It's so prevalent in the Bible that I think if you look past it, it all goes back to that. It's like man is in this constant state of trying to figure things out for himself. Whereas all
Mm-hmm.
God is asking for is just come back to him and ask him. He'll let you
Mm-hmm.
know, you know? It's a wonderful
Mm-hmm.
thing. So let's get to the image because we can talk about that
Yes.
forever, right?
Image time. Let's
Let's
get
get to
this.
the
This
image
is the moment everybody's waiting for.
because I
What
want
is
to
the
link up. I want to link up the image
yes?
to what Daniel has in his vision in chapter 7 because it's the same kingdoms,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Okay.
Same kingdoms. And like you said though, by the way, when we started this, you said, it's kind of known, like it's kind of obvious who the kingdoms are that are being spoken of in Nebuchadnezzar's dream and also
Yes.
in Daniel's vision. It's kind of known because it even the Bible interprets itself. But I remember going back to when we first learned this, when we were in, I guess you can call it Bible school, um, even though it's not a typical Bible school. But when we learned this,
Mm-hmm.
it's been here the whole time in the book of Daniel, right? I never knew it. I've read the book of Daniel
Mm-hmm.
before, but I never focused on it, never paid attention to it. And I never read the book for just being what it is, a story. I never really read it in that way. So hopefully it helps someone, by hearing
Right.
this and you can go read it for yourself and figure it out. So um,
Read the book. Damn it.
that's right. That's right.
Yes.
So Nebuchadnezzar's dream. So here's what Daniel tells Nebuchadnezzar, and I'll read it in chapter 2, verse 31. It says, You, O king, were watching, and behold, a great image. This great image, whose splendor was excellent, stood before you, and its form was awesome. And that awesome also means terrible. Like it was awesome, but also terrifying, right?
Mm-hmm.
The image's head was of fine gold, the chest and arms of silver, its belly and thighs of bronze, and its legs of iron, and its feet partly of clay, partly iron. And it says, You watch while a stone was cut out without hands, and it struck the image on its feet of iron and clay, and it broke the whole image to pieces. And then all the pieces that scattered to the floor, the summer wind came and it took it and blew everything off into the wind as if it never existed. And then that stone that smashed the image became a mountain and it rained over where the image was previously. So he said, This is your dream. And he's like, This is the interpretation. And I can just summarize, I don't have to read it. This is the interpretation. He says, You, King Nebuchadnezzar, you're the head of gold. So the head of gold in this image is Babylon. And it says
Mm-hmm.
the chest and arms of silver is a kingdom that's going to come after yours, inferior to yours, but it'll come after yours. And we know that today as Medo-Persia, and actually the book of Daniel talks about that. And we know about the book of Daniel too, because King Cyrus is the one who comes in and conquers Babylon. And it's in, that's how we know the line, Daniel in the lion's den, that was
Mm-hmm.
under King Cyrus, who
Yeah.
was actually the Medo-Persian king who was ruling over that province at the time. So then you have the belly and thighs of bronze. What's that? That's Greece. And then we'll link that to the animal that Daniel has a vision of later on. But that's Greece. And then right after that, you have the legs of iron. That's Rome. And then after that, the feet of part iron and part clay. So that's the interesting part, right? We know
Mm-hmm.
we have the luxury of reading this in the year 2024.
Mm-hmm.
So we have the luxury of looking back and being able to line this all up with what history has shown us. Babylon fell to the Medo-Persians. Medo-Persia fell to Alexander the Great in Greece. And then that Grecian kingdom fell to the Romans. And then the Romans is kind of an interesting topic that I like to talk about because Rome split into two, just as there's two legs. There's two legs of
Mm-hmm.
iron. Well, Rome split into two. There was Western Rome and there's Eastern Rome. Eastern Rome. Nobody really calls it Eastern Rome though, because it became the Byzantine Empire,
Mm-hmm.
set up at Byzantium, the ancient city Constantinople, where Constantine the emperor set that up and made that the head of the government, and also mixed church and state, which is important too. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but that's a whole nother topic. So you have Eastern and Western Rome. If you follow the sequence of the image, every single one, every transition of the metals had a clear cut transition, right? The gold fell right away. Babylon fell. King Cyrus conquered Babylon, which is a story of the handwriting on the wall,
Yes.
where Belshazzar, Nebuchadnezzar's son, was ruling Babylon. King Cyrus comes in, kills Belshazzar, and takes over the kingdom. Clear cut transition. Then you have the Medo Persians kicking butt all over the place. And then, which actually, I'll go to Daniel 7 and we can start looking at that
Well,
vision.
before, well, I
Yeah.
don't know if it's before that. No, no. I guess we could wait. We could wait. I'll bring it up when you get there.
Okay. Daniel.
So,
So the
all right,
vision that Daniel has, and cut me off if you have like, if you want to add something to it, because there's so
because
much
you'll just
here.
go on forever.
I would go on
Because
forever. Yeah.
you'll go on forever. I know. I
Oh,
know. I'm just gonna let you. I'm gonna let you carry this whole thing,
okay.
man. You the
Cool.
running back right now.
Cool. So, so
Go
I
all the
was
way to the end zone.
those clear cut transitions
Right.
were obvious, right? Babylon falls to Medo Persia. Medo Persia falls to Alexander the Great in Greece. And then
Mm-hmm.
Alexander the Great dies when he's young. And then, his kingdom is divided into four, which we'll talk about in chapter 7 here, because chapter 7 tells of that happening. And
Mm-hmm.
then after those four kingdoms are split up, there's two more powerful ones. And then of those two powerful ones, Rome eventually conquers them. But then
Mm-hmm.
history shows us that Rome, being probably the most powerful of all of them and covering the most ground of all of them, and being the most ferocious and the most destructive and the most powerful of all those kingdoms, um, which many people say that's why it's iron. They had legs of iron that just crushed everything in its path, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then the difficult part is finding out where's that clear cut transition from iron to the feet of iron and clay, right?
Well, before you get to that, I know I'm cutting you off, but you said I can interject.
Yes.
So, reading some commentary. Um, so they're saying each metal is each precious. Well, I won't say precious because the top three are precious, right? Iron is not really. I don't think it's considered a precious metal, but I
Oh,
don't know. I'm not an expert in that.
yeah.
Guess it could be right, but um, they said the value, right? Gold is more valuable than silver, silver more than bronze, bronze more
Yeah.
than iron, right? And obviously iron more than iron and clay. And they said the value of it had to do with the power structure that was in place. So with Nebuchadnezzar and Babylon being the head of gold, it was a head of gold because Babylon, that was like a true, it was a monarchy where all the power was centralized with him,
Mm,
where he was the head, like the all power was centralized with him. Then you get to the Medo Persian Empire, and then the power is a little bit diluted in the sense that the nobles of
yeah.
that time had just as much power as the king. They just
Mm,
didn't have the office or the
yeah.
name of the king, right? But they still had a high level of authority. And then going to Greece, you start getting the autocracy that comes in, right? And then Rome, you get the what's it, what do you call it? The what's the word they use? Hold on. They use the word. I want to check in my notes.
Like the legions.
No, not legions. See, I believe I don't know here. Rome. Um, oh, shoot.
I mean,
Now I can't find it in my notes.
yeah,
Um,
the military wielded power in Rome, really.
yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah. That's what it was. It was a military.
Okay.
So they have
Yeah.
more of a military authority.
Yeah.
So that's why you have the different types. So, which leads me, I'm going to come back to that. I don't even know if I should bring that up now. I should wait because
Mm,
I have it when we get to the iron and clay. So I was reading through that commentary. I was like, oh, okay, that's interesting. So, oh, and side note, okay, no, not side note. Question. So your idea, your theory we'll call it quote unquote theory, as it pertains to the Romans and the Byzantine Empire, right, or Roman Empire, right, Western Rome, and being split and being the two legs.
Yeah.
Is that did you read that? Did you come across that, or is that something that is that your own theory that's
Yeah.
pondered in your mind? Since I know you're a student of history.
Yeah. I never read it anywhere, although I'm sure someone has thought of that too. Because
Mhm.
because the chest of iron, or sorry, the chest of silver, the chest and arms of silver, there's two arms, right? And in
Mhm.
Daniel chapter 7, he Daniel represents the same chest of silver with a bear, and the bear is stronger on one side than the other. So in the same way, there's two legs for the iron, there's two arms for the silver, and it's the Medes and the Persians, right? So
Mhm.
there's two elements to that kingdom, two ruling powers. So the Medes and the Persians, but the Persians were always stronger, and the Persian kings were always stronger than the Medes. The Medes, when the Medes had a king as the Medes had a representative as king, essentially. So the Persians were always
Mhm.
stronger than the Medes. So it's interesting that the image works out that way. And of course, it's like I find that to show how awesome God is, right? To use a man, to
Mhm.
use the image of a man as
Mhm.
representative of the transition of these kingdoms of man, because you have the head of gold. Okay, yeah, it's kind of true that the head of gold is there's just one thing there. A head of gold, gold is the most precious to the commentary that you read. I can see the validity in that because King Nebuchadnezzar had absolute power there, right?
Mhm.
You go to the Medo Persians, and the Medo Persians, I think, set up satraps or however they pronounce it in their version. But there's different regions that they set up, and then the Medo Persian the Persian king would say, "Hey, you're going to rule this area for me," because the Medo Persian Empire was so huge, it was vast,
Mhm.
right? And we know it from the movie 300.
Mhm.
Uh, uh,
Yeah.
I mean,
That's Artaxerxes there,
yeah,
isn't it?
Artaxerxes, yeah. So
Yeah.
that's more towards, I would say, the later part of the Medo Persian Empire. But even so, they've expanded so far that they're
Mhm.
now crossing the Hellespont and going into Greece to take over Leonidas, right? Who was the actor that played
Mhm.
him?
Gerard Butler.
Gerard Butler. Yeah, he's going to take over
Yeah,
Gerard
yeah, yeah.
Butler, right? So,
This is Sparta. Yes.
which
That's become a meme now. So
that's right,
yes.
that's right. So, and that also leads to another topic because where did the Spartans come from? Where did the Greeks come from? And that's something that we
Oh
can
no,
talk about
yeah,
much
that's a
later.
topic
But
for another day. That's so
so
complicated, man.
I know, right? So
Yeah.
going back to the idea of
Or
two
deep.
arms.
I'll say it's deep, not
That no, it
complicated.
is
I'll say
deep. That would
it's
take a
deep.
lot of
I'll say.
foundation building. Um,
Yes.
but yeah, going back to the idea of the two arms, Medo Persia, you have the Medes and the Persians, one stronger. And when in Daniel chapter 7, Daniel's vision correlates the chest and arms of silver to a bear, with one
Mhm.
side stronger than the other. Same thing, right? The Persians are stronger than the Medes. And then that bear actually has three ribs in its mouth. And there's a command given to that bear, say, go and eat your flesh. And the Medo Persian Empire is known for conquering three different kingdoms: the Lydian Empire, the Egyptians, and then the Babylonians. So they're known for conquering those three main powers that were in the earth at that time. Um, who is the historian now that I read that talks a lot about the Lydian Empire? Geez, I can't believe I'm blanking on it, but Herodotus. Herodotus talks a lot
Okay.
about the Lydian Empire. Anyway, so that's why I kind of the way I understand it is that it's very specific in using the legs of iron because there's two legs of iron, just as there's two arms. There has to be two
Mhm.
aspects to the Roman Empire, and there was the Western
Mhm.
and the Eastern. When the West fell in 476 A.D. to the Germanic tribes, the East was still strong. The East
Mhm.
was still strong, and the East continued for another 1,000 years after that. And then they ended up falling in 1453 to the Muslims, to the Ottoman Empire. So, um, which is where a lot of people will say that's when you began to see the mixture of clay with iron. Now, do I agree with that? I don't know. I mean, I think it's probable. That's definitely probable. The problem is I don't know how to properly pinpoint the clay, you know, because
Okay.
yeah, you had
You
a
want to
question on
say
that?
because you gonna say because you want to finish your statement before I jump in?
Well, because there's if you go through biblical interpretation, how was clay used in the Bible in the past or in the Bible up until that point? And usually it's
But you,
referring to the people, right?
yeah.
Yeah,
Okay. So that's perfect.
yeah.
So referring to the people, clay referring to the people, iron, and if I'm not mistaken, iron is typically referred to as like power and authority, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Is am I right?
Yeah,
There's
that's
like
why.
bronze, and then there's like, and then there's iron,
Yeah.
right? It was a scepter of iron, right? So it symbolizes power. So clay people, iron power, power to the people.
See, that's another interpretation. Yeah,
So
that's
I'm
right.
wondering, and then going by the commentary, some of the commentary I came across where they talked about the authority, which I discussed already, we touched on, it would make sense, especially like looking at the world today.
Hmm.
And that's why I wouldn't say it was the Muslims, but I think that that part is in the future. But it would make sense for the iron and clay to be the antichrist. His authority is based upon the whole power to the people,
Yeah.
some extreme measure of communism, or not. It doesn't have to be extreme. As communism in and of itself is extreme, but I would say an extreme measure of socialism, because communism would be socialism to more of an extreme degree. But yeah, that seems to make sense to me, because even going through Revelation, a lot of the Babylon there and the power structure that's set up, it's and even the currency, it would make sense for the currency to to fall, to be destroyed, right?
Yeah.
Because you read about the Babylon falls, right? The currency falls, all the stuff that um the gold is worthless, or whatever, the goods that these ships have on them are worthless now, right? They can't even go into port and do anything with them because they're worthless. And
Hmm.
I think a lot of that has to do with the fall of the currency, and you see that repeated throughout history.
Yeah.
Venezuela, I mean, that's what led to even Hitler, or that contributed to Hitler's,
Yes.
Nazi rise, or Hitler's rise within Germany, was that the total, I'm trying to find the right word, I don't know the word off the top of my head. I have a D word in my mind, but the complete destruction, I'll just say that, of
Mm.
the currency. So, anyways,
Yeah.
that seems like that would make sense, because like the ultimate form of man's, especially man's so-called enlightened state, right, and is this idea of communism, and the greater good is
Hmm.
everybody collectively working together, and
Hmm.
not having power centralized,
Yeah.
because all throughout those that image, and I know I'm rambling, I'm about to
No,
be done,
please
but all
do.
throughout that image you see that power start to dilute itself, if you will, or not
Yeah.
dilute, spread,
Yes.
and it's not centralized, it's decentralized. You see it become more decentralized through each of the kingdoms that take place. So if you have clay and iron, then it would be, the power would be in its almost ultimate decentralized state, right? Power to the people.
Well, that's a
Maybe that's
what you said earlier about the precious metals. That would
hmm
also apply right now because actually, when you're talking, it did occur to me too that there's been this slow, uh, not progression but regression uh, in the quality of the government that man has built up for itself, starting with Babylon.
hmm
It's interesting too that this starts with Babylon. Like, why did God choose to have his man Daniel on the scene and to write a book about this? Like, why didn't God choose someone else at a different time in history? So, why is it that he
hmm
chose a man in Babylon to begin this image? Yeah, and I find it very interesting because if we take this all the way back to the beginning in Genesis, the time when man tried to form itself into a united front against God started in Babel, with Nimrod,
So yeah.
so that was the first like indication in the Bible that we have where there was a man who was against God and who
hmm
tried to take the people away from God and bring them into some sort of self-sustaining, meaning we don't need God, into some
Mm-hmm.
self-sustaining form of government to where they can protect and provide for themselves. And that was the
Mm-hmm.
Tower of Babel, and that was Babel. And God said, nope, we're not doing that. God broke that up. But I find
Mm-hmm.
it interesting that it restarts again in the same place in Babylon, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and and at that point, like you said, power is centralized really very strongly in Nebuchadnezzar, but then it starts to deteriorate over time. Medo-Persian Empire
Mm-hmm.
still very strong, and they went up and they ate a lot of flesh. They killed a lot of people. They covered a lot of ground, but at the same time, there wasn't a strong centralization of power. I mean, the emperor for or the king of the Medo-Persian Empire was very fine with, he'd conquer a territory. I mean, look, it's a
Mm-hmm.
movie. It's a movie, but there's a lot of truth in it. In the movie 300, where he said, "Hey, just give me a little bit of earth." Well, what is it? I forgot the line that he says. He just the King Xerxes says he just wants you to offer, make an offering of water and earth or something like that. Basically, kneel down to the king and profess your
Mm-hmm.
loyalty to him, and you can still remain king over Sparta. And he says, in fact, I think in the scene where, Artaxerxes shows up on that big floating gold throne at the
Yeah.
very end, right before Leonidas like cast the javelin to try to kill him. I think
Mm-hmm.
right before that, they have a scene where they're talking, they're conversing, and Artaxerxes is telling Leonidas, "Look, all you got to do is bow down to me, and I will make you the warlord over all of Greece." Right? Because the
Mm-hmm.
Athenians didn't like the Spartans didn't like the Athenians, and so on and so forth. But they would come together if they need to protect Greece as a whole. But anyway, so yeah, you're right. The the king of Persia didn't really mind you being a king in your own right in your own land, just as long as you recognize I'm still higher than you. Right? It
Mm-hmm.
wasn't super centralized. Then you go to Greece, and if it wasn't for Alexander the Great, um, I mean, the Grecian Empire was never really one unified kingdom. I think it was Philip was Alexander's dad who first tried to unite Macedon in the Grecian Empire or in the Grecian lands in Greece.
Mm-hmm.
And then Alexander took over, and Alexander just went like a madman. And he even says what in chapter 7 here, he says, he calls him a leopard, right? He
Mm-hmm.
says, after this, I looked and there was another. Well, actually, let me go back. Daniel says, first one, there's four great beasts in chapter 7. There's four great beasts that came up from the sea of people, which is referring to. Each was different than the other. The first was like a lion, right? The lion had
Yes.
eagle's wings, and I watched till its wings were plucked off, and it was lifted up from the earth and made to stand on 2 feet like a man. And a man's heart was given to it. And the lion is Babylon. I mean, even the famous Ishtar Gate, as you enter into
Mm-hmm.
Babylon, the city, the Ishtar Gate, which is beautiful blue, has a bunch of lions all over it. The lion always was representative of Babylon, even in secular modern culture at that time. And the Bible here refers to Babylon as the lion with wings of an eagle that were plucked out. And so that goes to, I think it's in chapter 3. I think it's chapter 3 where Nebuchadnezzar thinks he's high and mighty, and God says, I'm going to cause you to be like a raving beast in the field. I'm going to bring you down to earth. So it's essentially
Mm-hmm.
the same thing. He was like an eagle that was soaring high above, and God plucked out his wings, brought him down, and made him stand up like a man, and said, "You're nothing more than a man. I'm king." God was telling him that. Um, Anyways, you go to the next one. He says, and suddenly another beast, second like a bear, and this bear was raised up on one side. Again, the Persians stronger than the Medes, and it had
Mm-hmm.
3 ribs in its mouth between its teeth, and it said, "Go up and eat your flesh." So literally, it went out and spread in every region. It took the Lydian Empire, it took the Egyptian Empire, and the Babylonian Empire, all three, and consumed them all. Brought it all into one big Medo-Persian Empire. But then it fell, and it says, "I looked, and there was a leopard, which had on its back 4 wings of a bird, and the beast also had 4 heads, and dominion was given to it." The cool part about that is that the leopard is Alexander the Great. It's the Grecian Empire, but it said it had 4 wings on it, and the beast also had
Mm-hmm.
4 heads, and that's because Alexander the Great died young. He conquered everything. He conquered everything. There's a cool book. I read. I think it's called Ghost on the Throne, and it
Mm.
talks all about Alexander the Great and his campaigns, and then what happened when he died, and how the kingdom split between his four generals, his four main generals, and it was like a mad rush, like when Alexander died, it was like, oh, he just breathed his last breath, quick, let's go, get your
Mm.
armies and let's go, let's stake our claims. So they literally divided up the kingdom into four. You had Seleucus to the east, that would be the Seleucid Empire, Ptolemy to the south, and the Ptolemaic Empire, which became Ptolemaic Egypt, which is funny because
Mm-hmm.
that's in what, like, to the second and third century BC. Those are a bunch of white dudes, or a bunch of Greeks that are in Egypt, ruling Egypt.
Mm-hmm.
Cleopatra was a descendant of the Ptolemaic Empire, of those
I was
Ptolemaic.
gonna bring her up.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
Cleopatra was a Greek. You know,
yeah.
she has a Greek origin. So everyone
She's
wants
a
her to
geek.
be, yeah. Anyway, it's silly. You just got to do a little bit of
Was she?
reading.
She wasn't even that. Was she even that pretty though?
I don't know. I mean,
I'm trying to
Mark
remember.
Antony wanted to be with her. Julius Caesar wanted to be with her. But
Oh
then
well, then
again,
maybe she was. And
yeah, then again, I don't know
then
if it
again,
was just to like marry, to get an alliance, to gain power, because they were generals, and the generals of Rome were always fighting. Like we said, they were a military kingdom. The military ruled everything in Rome. The
well, that
Senate,
was Rome, but
right.
you're talking about Greece.
Right.
Yeah,
So yeah, so Greece. So it splits into four: Seleucid and
yeah.
the Ptolemaic. Those are the two main powers. The other ones, Antigonus went to the north. He didn't really do much, and then Lysimachus and Cassander went to Greece and Macedon. But they didn't really do much. It was really just Seleucus and Ptolemy fighting each other, and their descendants fighting each other. And there's pretty cool
So
stuff. What do you say?
yeah. So question is
Yeah.
the Mastodon named after Mastodon?
No,
That's
I don't.
just let's have a random because every time you say Mastodon, see, I grew up liking dinosaurs, man.
Or maybe we should just
So
call it
when you
Macedon.
say okay,
Yeah.
Macedon, because when you say Mastodon, man, I keep thinking of
Right. I should say Macedon because
dinosaur
they're called
or prehistoric.
Macedonians.
Okay.
Yeah, no
Okay.
dinosaurs. No big mastodon with the trunks or anything, or the tusks.
Okay. Yeah. It's a
No.
big. That's an elephant, right? That was
Yeah,
a
yeah,
big elephant one day.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
that's that. And the whole point I wanted to point to: Daniel chapter 2, Daniel chapter 7, two different images, two different visions, but they're the same kingdoms. But it's just Daniel chapter 7 gives more details to it. And it's really neat. And this is
Mhm.
where, um, after the leopard, Alexander dies, the kingdom splits into four for the four generals, and then the king to the north, king to the south, they fight forever. The Seleucids and the Ptolemies fight forever. Um, and that just goes on and on and on and on and on until Rome comes into play, right? Until Rome comes to
Mhm.
power. Rome comes into power, it says, I saw in the night visions, and behold, a fourth beast, dreadful and terrible, exceedingly strong. It had a huge iron teeth, and it was devouring, breaking in pieces, trampling the residue with its feet. It was different from all the beasts that were before it, and it had 10 horns. So, again, this goes back to the iron legs, but then the iron and clay feet. So I think this is a great verse to read because it tells us a little bit more about what the iron legs and the iron feet with the mixture of clay is. It's still Rome.
Mhm.
It's still Rome.
Mhm.
So that's why I brought up earlier, how do we identify the clear cut transition from the iron to the feet of iron and clay? And of course, we know it hasn't happened yet. Right.
But maybe that's the thing. Maybe the clear cut transition. We keep looking for a clear cut one, but maybe that's not it. It would be like
Yes.
it's like looking at a steak. I don't know if this is a good example, but if you look at a steak uncooked,
Mm-hmm.
right, and it has the marbling, right, so you have the meat and then you have the fat, right?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe, and there's some meat that has more marbling than others, right? If I'm not mistaken, and so you have meat with less marbling or maybe almost none, and then you'll get this one portion where it's a lot more marble and you got the fat around it, right? You get those real fatty pieces. Maybe it's something like that where you have this iron where it's pure iron, and then once you get to the feet, right, the ankles and then down to the feet, or past the ankles down to the feet, you start seeing the marble of the clay and the iron mixed in there. And I
Yeah.
think because even though you had the military power of Rome, you also had the idea, which I think is started with the Greeks, though, of was it like democratic rule,
Hmm.
right? Where
Hmm.
there's supposed to be the authority is you have Caesar, but you still have this authority that's dispersed throughout the people,
Hmm.
right? So now we live in a society today where we have these, these figures, a president, a prime minister, but you still have the power is supposed to be dispersed throughout the people. Does that make sense?
Oh
Like
yeah,
like
yeah.
now we're supposed to vote, right? We got election coming up in November.
Hmm.
We have a president. He's supposed to be the head of the nation, right? But the power is supposed to be in our hands as
Well,
citizens. I
think of
don't what do you think of that?
think of this too, because I was just going to say, like you said, there isn't a clear cut transition, um, because, and this is where Paul comes into play in the New Testament, because
Yes.
Paul was given, God gave to Paul the mystery of the church, right? And
Hmm.
the mystery of the church age was something that nobody saw. Like the Old Testament did not see the mystery of the church. It was something that was hidden, even from the prophets, even from God's chosen people. Abraham didn't see it. We didn't see the church. It was only to Paul that God revealed the church to. And
Hmm.
so you look at, and this is where Daniel chapter 9 comes into play, because Daniel says, man, how long is this going to be till the people go back? You deliver your people. And Daniel chapter 9, God says 77s are appointed to your people, right? To finish the transgressions, to it says that, what is it? Yeah, to finish the transgression, to make an end of sins, to make reconciliation for iniquity, to bring in everlasting righteousness, all that stuff, to seal up the vision and prophecy, and to anoint the most holy.
Hmm.
77s, and everyone agrees that's 490 years, right? 70 portions of 7 years, 490 years from that time when Daniel asked. And you could do the math and figure out that it was exactly correct to the day, that that 490 years was exactly right to the day, because 483 years from the time that the proclamation was given to rebuild the city and to rebuild the walls, which was given to Nehemiah in like 444 BC, 483 years from that time would bring you right to the point where Jesus was crucified, to the
Hmm.
day, to the day. And the problem is, people do the math and say, "Oh, you're wrong." Okay, not 365-day years, but 360-day years according to their calendar. So you do the
Yeah, you
math.
got to go by the Hebrew calendar. Yes.
Exactly. It brings you right to the day where he's cut off, where Messiah is cut off, where he's crucified.
Hmm.
But see, from there, there's still 7 more years left. But the key point is that the prophecy says 77s are determined upon thy people, Daniel, and upon thy holy city. So the 77s apply only to the Jews. That's it.
Hmm.
Only to Daniel's people and only to Jerusalem. It's only to the Jews and to Jerusalem. So that 483 years to Jesus being cut off was done exactly as it was prophesied, to the day. But then when Jesus died, everyone expected him to be the Messiah and come and take over Rome, defeat it, and set up his kingdom right then and there, right?
Hmm.
But it didn't happen, and we know that didn't happen. That's when Jesus said, "Hey, psych," and I'm giving the secret to Paul. Here's the mystery to Paul that was hidden from the ages. That when I was crucified, when Jesus was crucified, and he ascended and sat upon the right hand of the Father. Now he started his kingdom, but it wasn't a physical kingdom; it was a spiritual kingdom. And then in comes the church. Now it will be very
Hmm.
much a physical kingdom when the time is up, when this mystery is over. And then the church being that mystery, and when the church is removed, and we all call it the rapture, then the clock
Hmm.
starts again for that last 7 years. God still owes the Jews 7 more years according to the prophecy of Daniel. And if every single year was accounted for properly to the T, like to the day, you can bet that those 7 years are going to be accounted for properly. But the problem is, nobody knows when this mystery is going to be over. Nobody
Hmm.
knows when this church age is going to be over, but the church does have to be taken away in order to allow the Antichrist to come and like truly fulfill that last 10-toed kingdom, as people call it. The last
Yes.
10 horns on that Roman beast. And
Yeah.
that's what's so interesting, man, because hear me out on this. So
Okay.
the mystery, you have the image of Nebuchadnezzar going on one hand, right?
Hmm.
And we're still in the portion of the iron legs becoming the iron feet and clay, the iron and clay feet. We're still in that portion right there. It's almost like we stalled out. That's still going, right? But then we have this mystery. And what's so fascinating to me is that with this mystery that nobody knew about, what has been the most dominant and successful and powerful empire the world has ever seen? It's the United States. Prior to that was the British Empire. And that's not in Daniel. Like where is that in Daniel, right?
Would you consider the U.S. an empire?
Oh yeah.
Which is probably this is like a topic for another day,
Oh
but
yeah.
yeah.
No,
Okay.
so even
Okay.
the prophecies that God see, Daniel chapter 9 says that all this time, all these things have to happen before, these 490 years could be fulfilled. And it says, seal up the vision and prophecy. There's so many prophecies that were given to Abraham. Like God promised so much stuff to Abraham. And he said, I'll make your seed like the sand of the sea, like the stars of the heaven.
Hmm.
You're going to possess the gates of your enemy. All these different things. All those prophecies were never fulfilled in the Jews. Like we know, the Jews never fulfilled that.
Actually, yeah, and interjecting, it seems like God's prophecies, man, they span generations upon generations. Like
Hmm.
it's like, oh, you think you're just gonna get that now?
Yep.
No, like all aside from getting the son himself, right? And then Abraham was blessed as well, but the prophecy, even when Abraham said, "Well, how will I know that this land is mine?" The prophecy that God gave him, the guarantee that he gave him, was something that wasn't going to happen
Yeah.
for hundreds of years
Hmm.
after his death,
Hmm.
right?
Right.
Obviously, it was meant for the descendants to look upon and say, "Look, see, this was written down back here. This is what he wrote. This is what's happening now.
Hmm.
So you're supposed to know." But he told him that, but that prophecy was a validation for the people that were coming centuries
Yes.
later.
Yeah.
And yeah, we get so caught up, especially like nowadays, we have our microwave generation, right? Our microwave mindset. We want stuff now. Even I've been guilty of that.
Yeah. Me too. We all are.
And
It's just so
yeah,
human
yeah,
nature. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. But God is doing stuff. God thinks long term, and he's like, yeah, I'm
Yeah.
telling you this. It's like chess, right? Chess is a great example. You do chess, you're thinking long term, right? You're
Yeah.
not just making this one move. You have to, in order to be a good chess player, you have to think multiple moves ahead.
Yes.
And God is already thinking those multiple moves ahead. So
This is becoming a theme of the show that it's God's story, you know,
yes.
like the prophecy that's given to Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, to Joseph, to the sons of Joseph. Those prophecies, even though on face value, it's like, oh, it's for Abraham and it's for Isaac,
Hmm.
right? But it never really was. It was for God to tell his story because it
Hmm.
it, it benefits God. The fulfillment of the
Hmm.
prophecy benefits him, and it makes his name great, not Abraham's, not
Hmm.
Isaac's, not Jacob's, not anybody's. And because
Yep.
this prophecy is being fulfilled through the descendants of Joseph, because it was to Joseph's children that the birthright blessing was given to. That birthright blessing was, you'll be like the sand of the sea, you'll be like the stars of the sky, you'll possess your enemy's gates, you'll be a great people, multiple kings will come from you. So
Hmm.
it was only fulfilled in one people group in history, because no one has possessed the gates of their enemy like the British Empire and the United States. Nobody. Like,
Hmm.
even you can probably Google it right now. There is nobody has ever literally had a base of operation on every friggin' country on the planet like the United States of America. No one
Yeah,
has.
what's that old phrase they used to say about the British Empire? The sun never sets on the British
Exactly.
Empire.
Exactly. And the British Empire has to be one of the most miraculous empires in all of history, because it's this simple little island up
Mm.
far north of Europe, this simple little island that they had been harassed by Rome forever, right? And Then you have the Anglo-Saxons that are there. Then the Normans came and invaded the Anglo-Saxons. The Normans took over, but somehow they all commingled and kept on thriving. And then, you even have that image still thriving in Europe. Rome, right? Rome still
Which
thriving.
image?
Hmm?
Oh, Rome. Okay,
Yeah,
yeah,
Rome is
yeah.
still
No, no. I was
thriving.
asking which one. Yes, yes, yes.
And with Rome comes
Mm-hmm.
the church, the Catholic Church, that is thriving. The Pope is the one who's calling the shots. After Rome fell in the West, after 476 AD, after Rome fell in the
Mm-hmm.
West, the Pope is now calling the shots. And the Pope is deciding who's going to be ruler. And then eventually we get what's known as the Holy Roman Empire in the West. And the Pope is the one saying, you over there, you're going to be king because I say so. Because the Pope would say, I have the power essentially of life and death. I can condemn you to hell or I can save your soul. So you do what I want and I'll save your soul. But if you don't do what I want, I'll condemn you to hell. And I have that power. And they all believed it.
Mm-hmm.
That's what they understood. So, anyways, you have that part of Nebuchadnezzar's image running. But then on
Mm-hmm.
the side, all of a sudden, certain things start happening. King Henry VIII in England says, I want to divorce this lady. And back then, if you're a king, you got to go to the Pope to get approval for
Mm-hmm.
your divorce. The church has to approve your divorce. And the Pope said, no, you can't do it. So King Henry VIII is like, man, forget you. I'm going to divorce her anyways and start my own church. So he starts
Mm-hmm.
his own church, the Church of England, and he pulls out of the Holy Roman Empire, the Catholic Church. And then that's going on up here, right? Which is going to become the British Empire. And then you have
Mm-hmm.
uh, um, in Germany a guy named Martin Luther, who's like,
Mm.
and see, which by the
Thank God
way,
for Martin Luther, man.
the interesting part is that Eastern Rome, the Byzantine Empire,
Mm-hmm.
fell in 1453 AD, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right after it falls, it just so happens that a new birth in the West happens. And this new awakening of knowledge happens. The Enlightenment, the Renaissance, all this stuff happens after Byzantine Empire falls. That last vestige of Rome proper as we know it. Even though Rome continues on, like we've said many times, uh, the Russians call themselves the Czars because that's Russian for Caesar. And then
Yes.
the Germans call themselves the Kaisers. That's German for Caesar.
Kaiser. So
Kaiser.
if you have Kaiser Permanente, Kaiser is German
That's
for
right. And
it's a
even
Caesar.
Napoleon Bonaparte in the 1800s, he wanted to take the throne of Caesar, and that's why he wanted his son to
Mm-hmm.
be on the throne of Caesar. Everyone still wanted to be Rome, and they wanted the
Yeah.
power that came with Rome. But you have, after that Rome proper falls, Martin Luther comes, and Martin Luther says, I don't agree with what the church is saying. He posted 95 thesis to the Wittenberg Church.
Mm-hmm.
Says nope, starts the Reformation, and then from there on, we now know people called the Protestants because they're protesting the church. Then you have King Henry VIII, who's like, man, the Pope, you're messed up. I want a divorce. So I start my own church too.
Mm-hmm.
Screw that. Now, all of a sudden, people are starting to break away from that hold that head of gold, chest of silver, belly of brass, and the legs of iron, that hold that image has had on all of mankind. People are starting to
Mm-hmm.
break away. And then after that happens, even you have people like Gutenberg invents the printing press. All of a sudden,
Mm-hmm.
mass printing can happen and the people can now get some knowledge on their own. They don't have to rely on what the church is telling them. And then you have Galileo, you have Copernicus, Da Vinci, people that are actually now starting to think for themselves and come up with these brilliant thoughts. You have people exploring the world like
Mm-hmm.
Magellan, Columbus, where before the church would tell everyone, no, that the world ends right there. If you go there, you'll
Yeah,
die.
the world was flat,
The
right?
world is flat.
Even though the Bible refers to the world as being a circle,
Yeah.
right? Being a sphere, right? Same. And but yeah, here comes the
So
Catholic.
you
Yeah,
think about it,
it's flat.
in order to fulfill the prophecy of becoming like the sand of the sea and the stars of the heaven and possessing all your enemy gates and all that stuff, you got to be able
Mm-hmm.
to expand across the whole earth. And so that
Yes.
wouldn't happen until Rome proper fell. And then my point is that you have this image going, and this is essentially Satan's dominion.
Mm-hmm.
That's what Satan uses to control his earth. God has his other plan, where he raises up the British
Mhm.
Empire and the United States of America. And I just say, I'm not
Mhm.
saying that that's like that's where God's church is, although the gospel never went east. The gospel only went west. So after Jesus dies, the gospel goes out, the preaching of the gospel goes out, and who carried the gospel into the world but the British Empire and the United States of America on the whole? Those are the two
Mhm.
countries that carried the gospel to the world. And then not only that, they're the ones that fulfilled all the promises that were given to Abraham. And you could trace back the people themselves, the people groups themselves, back
Mhm.
to the Israelites. I mean, again, whole nother topic, but we do know that even,
Topic for another day,
yeah,
but it's definitely what we should cover.
yeah, because we do know that the 10 tribes of northern Israel were taken by the Assyrians, planted into the land of the Medes. And then, after
Mhm.
being mercenaries or being a buffer state, really, for Assyria and Babylon, the Israelites were like, man, screw this. I don't want to be mercenaries anymore. I'm leaving. And they go migrate north through the Caucasus Mountains, and they go north and they disappear from history. But people are like, that's why they're called the lost 10 tribes of Israel. Nobody knows where they went. But in the same place at the same time that they disappeared, the Celtic people appeared out of nowhere at the same place
Mhm.
at the same time. And even historians today, you ask, where did the Celtic people originate? Well, we don't really know, but we know they first appeared north of the Caucasus Mountains at the same time that the tribes of Israel went missing. I mean,
Mhm.
oh, it's the same people. But anyways,
Yeah. And there's secular what do you call them, scientists and historians and whatnot, who've actually traced that back. So it's
yes,
not just limited to,
it's
it's
not
not
just
like just
church.
a
No.
religious uh fixation on it. Like
No.
it's been the world notices it too.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
they'll acknowledge that the
Yeah.
Celtics came from have a Semitic origin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'll wrap it all up just because I know we're coming up to an hour already. But the whole point is this image that this accurate
Hmm.
prophetic image, very detailed prophetic image that Daniel has and Nebuchadnezzar has that Daniel interprets. It's still going today. And that's the mechanism by which Satan is ruling the nations, or he's controlling the nations, right? But ultimately, God is still in charge. So God said, just like with Nimrod, going against God, and God says, "Man, scatters them out." Um, I even forgot what verse it is in the Psalms, but it says that God sits in the councils, and God has, um, His people who are ruling over the nations of the people of mankind, and God sits in that
Hmm.
council and judges accordingly, and He's going to hold accountable those ruling spirits that are ruling the nations of the people at the end of time.
Yeah. Even with that, in Daniel, didn't Daniel have who was that? Gabriel
Yes,
came to Daniel,
right,
and he said, "Man, I would have came to you sooner." Was it 21 days?
right.
He's like, "I would have came to you sooner, but I got caught up with the Prince of Persia,
That's
and
right.
Michael had to come and help me out and hold him off." So Michael's over there dealing with him right now. When I'm done talking to you, I'm gonna go back there and
Exactly.
I'm gonna go finish off because and then after him, he said the ruler, the Prince of Alex of
Grisha.
Greece is coming,
That's right.
right?
Exactly.
So and and this stuff was written. They found it's documented to be written before
Yes.
all of these kingdoms came into
Yeah.
place.
The Dead Sea
So
Scrolls
before
were
the Persians.
Yeah, the Dead Sea
Yeah.
Scrolls were found somewhere in like 1940 something, but they were dated back to between the first and third century BC. And not only that,
Mhm.
the Dead Sea Scrolls found there were like multiple copies of the book of Daniel found in the Dead Sea Scrolls. And common archaeology and science knows that when there's multiple copies found from a particular time period, that's not the time period when it originated or when it was originally drafted, but when it was copied from an earlier source. So
Mhm.
all this goes back so far, but it was accurately predicted. But like you said, this image that we see of the gold, the silver, the bronze, and the iron and the clay, this is what Satan is using with his authorities that Paul talks about in Ephesians. He says that we
Mhm.
wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against powers, principalities, and rulers in darkness or rulers of the heavenly places, or something like that.
In heavenly
In
places,
heavenly
yes.
places, those are the entities that are truly pulling the strings behind these what we call world leaders. They are driving these
Yeah.
people. Alexander the Great was driven by one of these, call it a demon, call it a spiritual host. So was Julius Caesar. I mean, Hitler was, Napoleon
Yeah.
was. These people are
Well,
driven. It's almost like they're the chess pieces that these spiritual powers are moving to accomplish
yeah.
what they want to do. But God is going to hold those spiritual authorities accountable at the end.
Yeah. He's still in control. They're not doing nothing that he doesn't.
And
I won't even say let him do. I mean, he
mhm,
lets them do it, but he's still like how you say there's bumpers or there's guides or
yeah,
they can only move certain ways or only
yeah,
go one direction.
yeah,
Even though they think they're being that's the same thing with us. We think we're being autonomous and you're
mhm.
not.
Right.
You think you're making your own decisions. You're not.
And
There's certain things you do. I mean, I don't think like every time you choose to go to In and Out, God is like, I want him to eat at In and Out. No, I want him to eat at Carl's Jr. He doesn't do
right,
that.
right,
I don't I don't think.
yeah. Ah,
But
the
we'll be
amazing,
surprised how much influence we
yeah.
actually present in our lives.
Yeah, it says his thoughts are not our thoughts and his ways are not our ways. We just don't know.
Yep.
We don't know. We're so
Yep.
limited. But I
Yep.
say the most beautiful thing though, about this, that we see this worldly.
Wait, did you say butts are the most beautiful thing?
No, no,
I
no.
didn't
I
agree
said
with you. Man.
no, 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 no. I didn't say that. I don't know how it came
Oh,
out.
you don't but so you don't agree.
No, not when I'm talking about Daniel. So, so,
Look at you being all serious, man. All right. All right. Let's go.
but
Go
the
ahead. Go
cool
ahead.
part,
Go ahead.
and because I want to just get before we finish, is that you have this image developing in the world, still going today, but God
Mhm.
essentially says, "I see that, and I'll raise it." And God, through the mystery of the church, at the same time of this mystery portion that nobody knew about, and there's a pause put on that 490 years. God raises up the British Empire and the United States of America. We have things like manifest destiny that James Monroe came up with. Our fifth president said, "Hey, we have manifest destiny. It's our responsibility, our God-given right to push the boundaries of our country to the ends of the earth." And yeah, people say,
Mhm.
"Oh, you pushed all the native tribes out." Look, I ain't talking about that. We don't have time for that. The fact is, there's never been anyone like the British Empire, and there's never been anyone like the United States of America. And truly, once, and I fully believe that once the United States of America and the British Empire fall to the point that they have no desire to follow God anymore, then the Antichrist comes. The church is going to be removed and the Antichrist will come. The British
Mm.
Empire and the United States of America, like it or not, it is factual. They were founded upon biblical principles, upon God fearing men. They were. Not all of them were
Mhm.
God fearing, but they were founded upon biblical principles, and they believed that they had biblical backing for their existence. It's written in the Magna Carta. It's written into the English common laws. It's written into the Declaration of Independence. It's written into the Constitution. It's written into many of the
Mhm.
founding documents of both countries. We believe that God is giving us our right to reign and rule. Um, but it's when we no longer turn to Him and we turn away from Him, I'm sure that God says, "All right, now it's time." The church comes up with me. That clock starts again, and that final 7 years will take place for God to finish what He owes the Jews. Um,
Mhm.
and we just don't know when that's going to happen. But we can get close. We can know the season. We just don't know the day or the hour.
Mhm.
So that's really it, man. That's most of Daniel.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
That's pretty. Man, you a deep brother, man. So I don't even know why you got me here, man. Look at you, man. You just Professor Shorman, man.
It's fun.
Professor Tim.
I'm glad my reading is all for something.
So am I. I'm glad that it's all for something too.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Well,
yeah. So to recap, I'm gonna see if I got this. So we had the image of Daniel,
mm,
and the image of Daniel represents I guess for a the power structure of at that time futuristic, but now it's the historical power structure and partially futuristic with the feet of the world, right, from a natural level. And at the end, God smashes it.
Yeah.
So God was showing that with Babylon,
Hmm.
and obviously Babylon. To add to it, Babylon had a particular measure of influence because I would say it would make sense that each empire influenced the one after it,
Yeah.
but Babylon had some measure of influence that made it the head. So,
Yeah.
but oh, excuse me, sorry about that, y'all. I'm having a fantastic time. That has this in no way, shape, form connected to you, Tim.
Oh,
Okay,
no worry. It's a warm day, man. That warmth makes you sleepy.
it's comfortable, man. It's a soothing feeling, man. Being in Christ, I'm at peace. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying?
Yeah.
With Jesus Christ, it's like no matter what the storm is going on, going back to refuge, I
That's right.
go to sleep. Right?
That's right.
That was, but yeah. So the power structure, and then I guess the debate. Oh, this was something I wanted to mention, and I didn't mention. I know I'm digressing, but one commentator said this, which I thought was very interesting, and I want to get your 2 cents on it.
Hmm.
Where is it? They said there's liberal. Okay, it says liberal commentators do not believe that the fourth kingdom is Rome,
Hmm.
but they say it is Greece, and that the second and third kingdoms are Media and Persia, respectively,
Hmm.
instead of the Medo Persian empires as a whole. They interpret this way because they believe it was impossible for Daniel to predict the
Oh,
rise of these empires. Which
no.
is like, wait, it's impossible for to
No.
predict, but he got it from, so God can't predict it because I
Exactly.
thought he got it from God. That's weird.
Exactly. I mean,
Yeah.
could be that's why he Daniel 2 and 7 link to each other, because it's gold,
Hmm.
silver, brass, and iron, and then the four animals: the lion, the bear, which is Medo Persia, and that's why it says raised up on one side because Medo Persia, and then the leopard with four wings, and four heads. So the leopard with four wings and four heads is Alexander with his four generals. You know, it's that's
Hmm.
numbers have a powerful thing. I'm not into the whole numerology and all that stuff, but numbers do have a meaning to it. You know,
Hmm.
and by the way, the beast after that has to be Rome. Although, never mind, they said that was Rome. They agreed to that. They just don't believe that Greece was included in there, do they? No.
No, no, no. They said it wasn't Rome.
Oh, they didn't say it was Rome. They said it was Greece.
They don't think the fourth kingdom is Rome. They don't believe that
Oh,
because they think it's Daniel. It was impossible for Daniel
uh,
to predict.
that's funny.
Right.
That's funny.
Excuse me. But when you look at it historically, it all makes sense. And Daniel literally says Gabriel told him. He said, "Yeah,
Hmm.
Persia's coming," and he says after Persia, Grecia.
Hmm. Hmm.
So it's literally said this angel speaks that out.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and then obviously Rome came after. So,
Yeah.
and what you thought the greatest empire of the world is not going to be mentioned, right?
Right. Right.
Well,
For
yeah, we'll just
yeah.
for our time, I guess
Right.
our understanding of
And that was
the
another
case.
key
But yeah.
thing, is that this image, it was kingdoms of man that had a direct ruling and impact on Israel or Jerusalem. It had to have that, right?
Hmm.
Jerusalem had to be there. So it's those kingdoms that had a direct influence or control over Jerusalem and the Holy Land. So, um, and of course, we know after that's why it's Babylon, Medo Persia, Greece, and Rome, and then United States and British Empire not there because it's during that time of the mystery when Jerusalem or the Jews are gone. Because in AD 70, I think it was Titus came and crushed them, completely demolished them. Josephus talks about
Well,
this a lot.
would you say the Jews are gone, or it's
They
just
were
the age of
scattered.
the church?
Well, the Jews are not gone.
Okay.
It's just
The
they're
Jews,
scattered all over. They
yeah.
don't have their city. They didn't have Jerusalem. Um, it
Okay.
was taken
Not
over.
until not until after World War II, right?
Exactly. Not until after World War One, where Lord Balfour from Britain. gave his declaration, which is the Balfour Declaration in 1916 or 16.
Oh, so it's World War One,
Yeah.
not World War Two.
So
I
after
thought it was post.
yeah, after the World War One, the Ottoman Empire fell, and the Ottoman Empire was controlling all that region. And then when the Ottoman Empire fell, it was split up, and then for the Balfour Declaration was giving Israel their land back, the Jews their land back. But then after World War II, as part of the final treaties, the Jews were also given the land back again, finally, and then they all come back, and then it's history from there. So it really wasn't until World War II.
I'm happy you're my friend, man. So it really wasn't until World War II
where they truly came back.
Okay, all right. So I wasn't completely wrong.
You're not completely wrong. No, that's right. If you say World War I and World War II, there you go. They got their land back.
So I wasn't right, but I wasn't wrong.
Yeah,
I was like,
which,
anyways, but I'm happy you're my friend.
Oh, thank you.
What?
I'll say, which is why people say we're in those very, very last days, because from AD 70 until, let's just call it the Balfour Declaration, to 1916, the Jews didn't have their land. They weren't there. They were gone. They're scattered. But they came back after World War II, so 1945. I forgot the actual date that they came back, but the Jews now have their land back. And so it's kind of like, from a grand perspective of 2,000 years, to say that the Jews have had their land back for now 80 something years or whatever, that's a very, very, very short time in the span of 2,000 something years. So so now that they're back in their land, it's, let's see what happens.
See what happens, man. Let's enjoy the ride.
Yeah, let's enjoy the ride.
You better hope you got your seatbelt on, man.
Yeah,
the seatbelt's called Jesus, huh? You better put Jesus on, man. Anyway. I'll just set that up.
It's fun, man. It's fun.
Always fun, man. Always a good time.
Yeah.
Always a good time.
Yeah.
All right. So I think I should let you go, man, and then we should let the people go.
Cool. So
this is fantastic, man. This is a good conversation.
Yeah. Until the next time.
Learned a lot.
Yeah.
Till next time. Oh, I'm sorry. This is your show. Let me.
No. Okay.
Step back.
All right. Well.
You take us out, man. Take us out, Sulu.
All right. Thank you guys for joining us. Hey, I should do the plugs, right? Like a true YouTuber. Make sure to subscribe and comment. Let us know what you think. Even though what you say, I'm not really going to take it. But anyway, I don't care what you have to say. I do. It's nice to hear what people have to say and give some feedback. And, no one's going to know everything. So it's nice to be able to have an open mind to see what people have to say. You put it up against the Bible and see if it's true. But it's nice to hear what you guys have to say. So we appreciate your feedback and your viewership. So
yes.
Until the next time, man. I'll see you.
That's a long pause, man. Until the next time, and just all you hear is that chirp, the bird chirping. You gotta do that again. Do it again.
All right, man.
Do it again.
All right. So until the next time, I'll see you guys. It was good chatting with you, man. Peace.